And so our first slide is talking about Nueva. So a brief introduction about Nueva is that one key characteristic, they do have an emphasis on IQ tests and personalized classes. We will definitely get into that more in the next couple slides. But more for the brief information, there's two campuses for Nueva. One is in Hillsborough and the other one is in San Mateo. The teacher to student ratio is currently 1:5, and 80% of teachers hold advanced degrees. For their main grade entrance, it is kindergarten, grade 9, and grade 6. And just to give a little breakdown on their admission numbers, last year, about 20 students were admitted for kindergarten, 20 to 25 were admitted for G6, and about 45 were admitted for G9, grade 9. So as you can see, a lot of students were admitted for grade 9, but there is also a lot more applications as well. And then for their tuition breakdown, currently for pre-K, their tuition is $31,780. And then for grades K through 4, it is $40,000 exactly. And then for grades 5 through 12, it jumps up to $53,350. Now for their 2019 and 2020 UC admission rates for UC Berkeley and UCLA. When you look at UC Berkeley, there was really no change from 2019 to 2020. It's 28.95%, and then it dropped about 0.5% to 28.3%, which is very impressive based off the schools that we've looked at, both private and public in the Bay Area. A lot of schools definitely see a drop in UC Berkeley admission from 2019 to 2020, but the fact that it stayed relatively the same is very impressive. And then for UCLA, there was no information from the official UC admission database for 2019 UCLA, but for 2020, Nueva's admission rate was 25.5%. So now this next slide, we're going to talk about one of the key characteristics of Nueva, which is information on their IQ test. And so for their IQ test, it is required for students who are entering pre-K to grade 8. Students who are under 6 take the WPPIS-IV or Roman numeral 5, and then students over 6 take the WISEV or Roman numeral 5. The IQ test, it can be taken through the school or at another professional outside institution. A little bit of price breakdown for each. If you're going to go through the school, it's $350 for students under 6, and then over 6, it is $450. That's based off their official website. For an outside location, it will be more expensive. It'll run you at about $1,000. Their test for the outside location is a little more in-depth. You'll get a little bit more information from the test, but it does cost a lot more. And then one characteristic about the IQ test that is important is that no preparation for the IQ test is allowed. If the spotters or the people who are administering the test do kind of see that the kid has been briefed on this information before, your admission application will not be accepted. So make sure that there is no preparation prior, because the school does want to make sure that the kid or the students are going in cold so that they can better assess their IQ score. And then lastly, the cutoff line for the IQ test at Nueva is 130. However, from parents that we have talked to, based off their feedback, they do realize that only around like 2% of students are admitted with a score of 130. The sweet spot for Nueva's IQ score is around 135 to 140. So that is just something to keep in mind. Below, we have a graph of average IQ test scores. So as you can see, majority of people that take the IQ test score between that 85 to 115 range. Only about 2% of people that take the IQ test will score in that 130 or more range. So hopefully that's some helpful information on their IQ test. Since applications are going on, we do have some important upcoming due dates and events for Nueva for right now. The application season started around September 1st, but the due date is January 6th. And for grades 1 through 8, the off-campus IQ test date is January 14th. There's a lot of dates here that may be a little confusing, so hopefully this helps. And the pre-K through K off-campus IQ test date is January 28th. Now, they have separate due dates for on-campus IQ tests if you are G5 through 8. If you've taken an on-campus IQ test, the due date is January 14th. And then for pre-K through grade 4, the on-campus IQ test due date is around early February. They didn't specify exactly when, it's just said early February. However, the one key point for the on-campus IQ test date is that test spots usually fill up pretty quickly around early December. So if you haven't scheduled the IQ test the IQ test on campus yet, I would do so within the next week because it does fill up by early December. For other dates, the parent guardian form is due on January 6th as well. And then for the virtual parent guardian interview, that will be scheduled after your test is submitted and reviewed. They will send you an update, making sure to schedule that very quickly afterwards. And then lastly, for the ongoing events, the virtual program review, they are having that right now, as well as the parent guardian and guided tour. And lastly, the in-person activity session that is held on campus that will also be done after testing results are received and reviewed. So hopefully this is a little bit helpful information on their upcoming due dates and events, but now we'll get into some of their key characteristics for Nueva. So starting off, they do have a lot of personalized classes where students who are, say, gifted in English or math, or they excel at English and math, their pathway will be more geared towards the subject that they excel at. So if they're gifted at English, they'll have a schedule that's more focused on English, and then math, vice versa. And these personalized classes are because they want to make sure that the students have more of a one-on-one education with the teachers. They feel that that helps them excel more. They also implement project-based learning to do this too. And so the fact that there are personalized classes at Nueva, that also means that there's also no standard textbooks. It is all personalized for whatever the student's academic needs are. And then another key point is that there are no exams until grade 9. Instead, they implement a no pass system. The only test that they do take that isn't for a grade, it's just a personalized academic assessment, is done via the Educational Records Bureau, ERB. That's a test that's given out from grade 3, and it basically just contains a personalized assessment of their academics and performance for the parents to see how they are progressing throughout their academic path. And then lastly, they do have a very detailed SEL program because Nueva does believe that with kids who are going to the school, they do believe are gifted because of the IQ tests that they give. And although they may be gifted and excel in academic topics like English or math, they may not have the communication skills developed yet to communicate with other students. So that's why they have the detailed SEL program, or social emotional learning, to make sure that the kids are learning how to communicate well with the other students, especially with conflicts and debates that can happen during class. They will teach students to, instead of say, you're right, I'm wrong, they will teach the student to say, hey, that is a very good point that you make. However, this is what I believe. And this all to help them develop their real world communication skills that will help them in life on top of the academics as well. So that's a little bit about Nueva's characteristics, but we're now going to move in to some parents Q&A, which is some common questions that parents have asked us about. And so the first one is how to apply. The application is all done through Ravenna online. You can obviously create an account and then start your application process there. As we said, they are due January 6th. And then also, what do parents need to prepare? One thing that's very important for parents in order to prepare is their parent interview. And during the parent interview, they focus a lot on the educational ideology and philosophy of the parent. So they want to make sure essentially that the philosophy or ideology of the parent does match with the school, so that there's no conflict down the road, and there is no there's no conflict with the school and with the parent. So make sure that if your academic ideology lines up with Nueva, that will definitely be a positive thing for the parent interview, because if there's no conflict between the two sides, the child's education path will be a little bit more smooth. And then the third question is how to be more competitive. And so One way that a child can be more competitive during their application process is if they're glad to express themselves during the shadow day. The shadow day is essentially during the application process, students will know what it's like to have a day in the life at Nueva. And during that shadow day, make sure to express a key unique factor of the student, a talent, leadership skills is definitely really, really important. And just be special, be excellent, and be passionate, because that will definitely help during the shadow day and make the child stand out. So that is it for the first school, which is Nueva, but let's now move into our second school.